In the 80s, a much younger version of me sat in the house that he'd just bought for $33,000. And he was watching a movie about philosophy with a much younger version of Arnold Schwarzenegger sitting at the end of a table. And a man asked, "What is best in life?" And Arnold replied, "To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and hear the lamentation of the women." Now, even a young me realized that crushing people probably wasn't best in life, and definitely not hearing the lamentation of women. But I started thinking deeply about what really was best in life. That's the start of my search for wisdom. This morning, though, in the shower, I was thinking to myself, I'd never really defined wisdom. What is wisdom? And it occurred to me that perhaps wisdom is simply doing less stupid shit than the average person. What do you think? But today's episode isn't about doing less stupid shit. But no, it is. Because I've been looking into dating in the 21st century, and it's been messing with the algorithm. The algorithm thinks that I'm a young man who is searching for women. So it's offering me up all this stuff. And some of the stuff that it's offering up is a thing called Looksmaxxing. And in particular, people hitting themselves in the face, like punching themselves, or even hitting themselves in the face with a hammer to try to look more beautiful, or to try to look more masculine, more manly. And that, to me, really does seem like stupid shit. Now, I've been looking into whether being kind and being competent is something that people find attractive. In this episode, I'm going to particularly look at, is being kind more attractive than being beautiful?
I'm Trinity Anderson, editor, fact-checker, and this wizard-bearded old guy's foster daughter. My foster father is addressing the harmful Looksmaxxing trend and exploring interaction appearance theory, how prosocial traits can fundamentally alter physical perception. Filming for Plog Vlog allows him to explore these questions in the field while giving me space to tell the story of my mother Liz and her best friend David in weekly Intermission stories. When we return after the story, my foster father will explain what he found out about whether kindness is truly more attractive than physical beauty. It was the 14th of September, 1993, near the border of Kenya and Tanzania. The African Overland expedition began with a rushed nighttime departure in the battered old Bedford truck, after their primary driver headed back to Nairobi to settle a dispute. Under the cover of darkness, their remaining driver spirited the truckload of adventure tourists out of Kenya. Tension peaked when they took a wrong turn down a dark, unpaved road, and unseen locals began hurling stones into the open back of the heavy vehicle. Huddled in the back of the bouncing truck, my mother, Liz, and her childhood friend David quickly realized this was no curated tourist safari. Something strange was happening. Before the chaos of the night escape, the group had organized their tenting arrangements. Seeking to maintain a safe distance from any impending drama between David and his newly reunited girlfriend Claire, Liz pragmatically chose to share a tent with Mark, a young English police recruit. She wrote in her diary that she preferred the simple, uncomplicated banter of a stranger over the tangled histories of her best friend and his complex romantic entanglement. Naturally, David and his ex-fiancée Claire had paired up, hoping the African wilderness would help rekindle their fractured romance. That hope lasted exactly one night. By the following evening, the close quarters and underlying insecurities proved too much. Observing David's growing friendship with a pair of Australian nurses who had also joined the trip, Claire's jealousy boiled over. In a bitter confrontation, she furiously kicked David out of their shared canvas shelter, snapping at him to just go sleep in the nursing tent. David didn't argue or plead his case. Instead, he stubbornly grabbed his gear, lay down on the hard, unforgiving African dirt, and didn't look back. Peering from her own tent, Liz watched him settle into the dust, realizing that true resilience sometimes looks less like fighting back and more like quietly accepting the uncomfortable ground. For the next 43 days, David would spend every single night sleeping outside in the dirt, piling sand over the fire on cold nights, and sleeping on the roof of the truck whenever he spotted lion tracks while out collecting firewood for the group.
So is kindness as attractive as beauty? I've created the research brief and put that into Notebook LM and studied it, and I think I've got the answers. But before we get to that, I'm going to try something out in this reforestation area up here. Plog used to use a lot of drone footage. I used to have a drone following me around when I was filming in places like this, picking up litter. But going overseas, some places you can't take drones. So I've started using Insta360 cameras. Now, that means that the drones have been gathering dust. And I've been thinking, what actual useful purpose could I use this drone for? Now, see coming up here, there's all this reforestation. Now, I don't want to go into this area looking for bottles and cans, so I reckon there are going to be bottles and cans in here, because I don't want to accidentally ride over these trees. So I'm thinking that I could put the drone through, look for the bottles and cans this way and this way, and then just go into those areas and do the least amount of disruption. That could be a useful way of using the drone. Let's set that up. Motor's starting. Okay, hold the lock button to take off. There it goes. Right, now I think I fly forward. Did it take me forward? Yes, and I think I rotate around this way. There we go. Whoa, don't fly into my own head. So there's a 360 camera there. Let me see, there. There's my bald head. Definitely not a high status mating marker, that top there. Right, so we've got the split mating strategy. And the split mating strategy says that if a person is highly visually attractive, what that means is that people will initially, without flying into my own head, let's see, whoa, that's so cool. Right, so if a person is initially visually attractive, people will look at that as healthy markers for a potential mate. But what happens over time is that people also, and communities, want someone who is going to make, look out for cans and bottles as I do this, going to make a good contribution to the community and to the raising, especially the raising of children. And that's where the second part of the strategy comes in. This is where kindness and competence are a major factor. So if a person is perceived as kind alongside competence, and this is important, we'll get back to this later, competence must be part of this. If a person is perceived as kind and competent, what happens is that the opposite gender, or I should say just anyone, becomes more wired to perceive that person as being attractive. So that person actually becomes more physically attractive to potential mates. So if a person practices being both kind and competent, then that person can actually become more physically attractive. This, in many years past, used to be a orchard. Oh, there's a little kangaroo. Hello, wallaby. I think theoretically, this could actually be a good way of finding cans and bottles quite quickly. But there's no cans and bottles here. So let's go and look somewhere else. Something that forms an important part of the mating strategy split and this whole kindness and competence thing is alloparenting. Plog has done a whole episode about this about 6 months ago. Alloparenting is the concept where adults assist in the raising of children that they haven't directly sired or been the mother of. In other words, you've got uncles, aunts, other people in the community who help with the raising of that child. I'm a foster father and a stepfather, and that is an alloparenting situation. So people who are alloparents who are also kind and competent, which a lot of the time you would think an alloparent kindness comes with it. So if you've got the competence as well, you form an important part of the bonding and strength of that community. On that note, I'm going to find a spot where there are some bottles and cans that we can pick up as I get across this mud. Love this bike. You can get through anything. Not as fast as my old dual sport bike, but so much more comfortably. You don't feel like you're going to drop the bike all the time. Wonder where we should go next. That thing that happens where people become more attractive when people notice that they're kind and competent, that's called interaction appearance theory. Now there's a caveat to that, in that there's the nice guy caveat. And what that means is that if a person is kind, a nice guy, but they're not perceived as competent, that can be seen as both unattractive and also potentially creepy. In other words, people don't trust it. They think that the person might be deceiving them through their kindness. My problem is that I haven't taken the cover off my bucket. I could have just stopped and grabbed that, but I'm not fully set up. I'm thinking too much about my narration and not enough about my actual plogging. Morning, how are you? I've forgotten my next lines, or my next topic. They don't really do lines. What's the next topic? The digital sorting problem. Right. The data algorithms on dating apps, they prioritize like this 2D image of you. So if you are facially attractive, then it's kind of like a flashbulb. It goes, right? It sends a message to the person on the other side, but it also sends a message to the algorithm that you're of value. Now, the kindness and competence thing, instead of being like a flashbulb, it's more like a hearth fire effect. You know, when you're sitting around a campfire with a person night after night, and you start to realize this person really has value. They may not be the most initially best looking person in the world, but so just roll down here. Over time, you get to know them and you get to know just how competent and kind they are. And that then changes the neural structure of your brain so that you perceive them both facially and physically within their body as being more attractive. When I was younger, I used to find that. I used to say to myself, I seem to grow on women. Women would be more interested in other men until they got to know me. Then all of a sudden, they found me attractive. That explains everything. It also explains why my wife doesn't leave me for a more attractive man. Like I've said in this episode, despite the fact that I've got no innate talents, I practice things over time until I become at least averagely competent with it. And often my competence is actually quite good. Things you learn making Plog vlog. I'm going to go out and pick up some bottles and cans and stop bloody talking all the time. Here comes the sun, do-do-do-do. Here comes the sun, I say, it's all right. Good morning.
My foster father fairly competently described the digital sorting problem and interaction appearance theory. Evolutionary psychology supports this idea that while algorithms prioritize the two-dimensional flashbulb of immediate visual markers, human biology still seeks the sustaining hearth fire of parental investment markers like kindness and competence. Let's wrap up what this means for us in the real world. In this episode, we've explored how demonstrating both competence and kindness literally alters how physically attractive you appear to others over time. While modern dating apps filter heavily for physical perfection, genuine attractiveness is built on a foundation of prosocial behaviour. Here is a tiny action you can try today to build on that knowledge. If you're a kindly, competent person who is struggling on dating apps, perhaps look for opportunities to demonstrate your value in groups that meet regularly. My foster father has previously mentioned groups like Rubbish Club Australia that meet regularly to help keep our city clean. The group gets together at a different cafe every Saturday morning, cleans up for an hour, and then comes back to the shop for a chat. That seems like a perfect situation to let people know your value and let their perception of your attractiveness grow over time. We actually know people who have met their partners in groups like this. If you want to hear the full evolutionary psychology breakdown behind today's concepts, then check out our companion channel, Plog Vlog Study Notes. It features the AI-generated research podcasts my foster father uses to prepare for these episodes, playing uninterrupted over the extra B-roll footage that my foster father collects while out filming. There's a link in the description below. And yes, these episodes are getting longer. My foster father said to me that he has recognised how important the in-field narrations are becoming to him personally, even if nobody else gets this far through the videos. If you're still here as well, you can see the next episode up there on the left, and Plog Vlogs compilations are on the right. Honestly, if you've watched this far, then you'll probably get some really worthwhile things out of those previous episodes. And please, to help show your kindness, pick up 5